Hello, this is George Hutton, and you are listening to the Mind Persuasion Podcast. Today we continue our study of weaponized hypnosis. For more information, please visit mindpersuasion.com/weaponized-hypnosis. In today's episode, we'll be talking about embedded insults. When people come at you with simple yet unwanted impositions, it's fairly easy to repel them. Shift to a neutral position and ask some simple questions that gently push them off balance. Many times, however, people will say things and we feel we've just been insulted, but we aren't sure why. These take a bit more time to defend, as it requires learning the structure of their covert insults. What makes it difficult is when people throw these embedded insults our way is that they aren't very well thought out. Even though they are still using a might makes right strategy to push us off balance, it's not so easy to question the surface structure of their language. Sometimes asking, "What do you mean?" isn't enough, and sometimes that innocent question may even make things worse. When did you stop beating your wife? This is a classic question that represents these types of embedded insults. Technically, this is called a linguistic presupposition. There are about 20 different structures of these. We all use them, and we don't really know we are using them. Like other communication techniques, some people are better at using them. But what makes it so insidious? If you answer that question, when did you stop beating your wife, it's hard to answer it without agreeing with what it presupposes, that there was a time that you did beat your wife. What's worse is if somebody asks you this in front of others. Just the question will get a reaction. The people watching will see the reaction, and they may suspect that you did indeed beat your wife at one point. Most people will be put off momentarily by an unexpected question like this, and by the time you conjure up a response, the damage has been done. In this case, asking, "What do you mean?" won't help much. It may even solidify the presumptions of those watching. Remember, the purpose of these embedded insults, especially when asked in front of others, is to make you look bad in front of others. Although linguistically complicated, they are very much a might makes right schoolyard bully strategy. But it's one that requires a very careful and very quick response. In these cases, you must learn to respond not only correctly but quickly. Any hesitation on our part will do the work for the insulter. Any hesitation on our part will make us look guilty, or at least potentially guilty, in the eyes of the observers. Unfortunately, there is not any one simple answer we can give to all of these. We must quickly dig into the sentences to find the presumed insult, and ask specifically about that all before the observers know what's happening. We must be very quick. This will take some practice. How to respond to the wife-beating question. The presupposition in this question is that there was a time in the past where we beat our wife. That time is in the past because now we don't beat our wife. The question is asking when the transition happened. But in order to make sense of the question, we must first accept its premise that we once did, in fact, beat our wife, and now we don't. Even to consider the question, we've got to presume the wife-beating period and the non-wife-beating period. The trick to reply to this is question the underlying assumption and do it quickly before any observers accept the premise. Because once they accept the premise, it's too late. In this example, a useful response could be, "Why do you think that I ever beat my wife?" It must be quick and it must be neutral. By asking them why they think we ever beat our wife, it puts the onus right back on them to present any evidence, which they won't be able to do. We must do this faster than the people watching can make any assumptions about our alleged wife beating. This requires practice, because most questions that include embedded insults won't be so easy and obvious. Remember, they don't need to prove anything. All they need to do is lob the embedded insult and let it sit in the minds of the listeners while we struggle to respond. The good news is that if we do quickly identify the embedded insult and question them about it, it will backfire tremendously. They will look guilty and everybody will know they unsuccessfully attempted to insult us. However, this will take a lot of practice, and it will require martial arts style drills so we can block the verbal punches before they land. Basic strategy. Whenever we get an embedded insult thrown our way, we must quickly identify the insult. Then we put the onus back on them by asking them to explain or clarify the insult. How we do that isn't nearly as important as identifying the insult quickly and neutrally. When people lob these embedded insults, they usually haven't given them much thought. They are just a clever way of insulting us that nearly always works. It's very much like a sucker punch. If you were to sucker punch somebody, the whole point is to punch them so they don't see it coming. That means when intending to sucker punch somebody, the only strategy is to punch them once. Nobody that plans on throwing a sucker punch ever expects to get their sucker punch blocked, otherwise it wouldn't be a sucker punch. But if you happen to see a sucker punch coming, and you do block it, it's all over for the sucker puncher. The implications are clear. Because you are skilled enough to anticipate a sucker punch and block it, the implications that in a straight-up fight, the sucker puncher would be no match for you. When you calmly ask them to explain what they presupposed in their embedded insult, it will have the same effect. One question is generally enough to neutralize them. They are expecting the insult to stun you, and they hope that everybody sees that you are stunned and judges them as more powerful than you, at least on the social status ladder based on the situation. They are expecting you to passively be unable to respond, which will make them feel even more powerful. Like a sucker puncher who expects to knock out his victim and then maybe hit him a couple times just to demonstrate his authority. But when you block the embedded insult by asking him to explain why he thinks it's true, all focus will shift to him. He will then be on the defensive, which means you can further destroy anything he says. Once he's on the defense, you can simply keep asking simple questions like, "Why do you think that?" to anything he says. This will further embarrass him, but before we get to that stage, we've got to explore the world of linguistic presuppositions so we can learn how to defend against them. I'm George Hutton. Thank you for listening to the Mind Persuasion Podcast. For more information, please visit mindpersuasion.com/weaponized hypnosis. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.